What's up, Mike Nostalgia? Dave here with a review of Star Trek Section 31, the Star Trek television film, which debuted on Paramount Plus, the 14th Star Trek film overall, but the first one to debut on TV, not, be released in the movie theaters. Of course, this is a continuation of the long running at this point Star Trek universe under the creative vision of Alex Kurtzman over at Paramount. Of course, Star Trek Discovery, Brave New World, Picard. It's been a lot of successful TV shows over on Paramount Plus, actually beginning back when Paramount Plus was still CBS All Access. And that's kind of been the only place where Star Trek storytelling has been for some time. We haven't had a movie on the big screen since Star Trek Beyond came out way back in 2016. I have not watched any of the Paramount Plus Star Trek TV series. I've wanted to watch them. It just kind of got away from me, and now the pile's pretty big that it's a bit of a daunting task to try and catch up on. But I've heard good things. I know in particular Brave New Worlds is like really beloved, and I think Star Trek fans, which is a legitimate large fandom, but not like the biggest fandom in the world. Star Trek fans, I believe, are pretty happy with how TV is going, at least from what I understand on the outside. Nonetheless, a Star Trek movie coming out once again, even one being dumped on Paramount Plus, I had to watch it. I had to see it. And, I don't have any knowledge going in. Of course, this film stars Michelle Yeoh as the character Philippa Georgiou. That character debuted on Star Trek Discovery. In fact, I believe debuted in the first episode of the show and was a big piece of the ensemble cast for the majority of that show's run. So it's a significant character that is familiar to others. Nonetheless, I was coming in completely blind, and I was curious to see like how well would this movie work for someone who hasn't seen all the Paramount TV shows, or at least even just seen Star Trek Discovery. Like, how would it go? And of course, I'm coming into this as a big fan of Star Trek on the big screen. I love the Star Trek movies. I'm a fan of the JJ era for sure. I know that's maybe less agreed upon compared to the classic era, but I like Star Trek on screen. I've been frustrated that they never made that fourth film in the Kelvin timeline for Star Trek. I always wanted it. Nonetheless, it feels incredibly distant, and there's been a lot of creative ups and downs and reporting on where Star Trek is on the big screen. Obviously, everything that's going on at Paramount. You would like to think that Skydance, once they really get up and running creatively, would make Star Trek on the big screen a priority once again. But again, the question remains, is Star Trek Section 31 worth a damn? Going into Star Trek Section 31 completely blind, having not watched Star Trek Discovery, I gotta say I am incredibly disappointed with this film. I'm happy this film got dumped on Paramount Plus, because if it was on the big screen, I think it would have done a lot more damage to the brand. At the end of the day, it's just dull, middling, no characters really pop on the screen. It's just really boilerplate across the board. I thought the visual effects were fine, but the production design is very uninspired. There's really nothing to really grab you about how this movie goes. Having no experience with Michelle Yeoh's character, I didn't really get a whole lot out of her performance with this movie, and I think all the supporting characters are significantly weaker and thinner. Maybe it makes some sense that this movie is a bit of a tonal mismatch because it was originally conceived as a series and then kind of pivoted out into a film following COVID and the strikes and whatnot. To be charitable, they gave it a shot. They tried to salvage the project. It just didn't pan out. Honestly, I don't even think it's worth rehashing much of the plot. We're only in a handful of locations, a handful of settings, television film vibe, I guess. I don't know, nothing really popped per se. I didn't love the interiors, whether we're in the ships we're in. Nothing was really that cool. And yeah, the whole getting the gang together type thing. Enemy of my enemy is my friend. I didn't really like any of the characterization in the movie. It's just also thin. It's also simple and basic. And no character is given any chance to really shine. The script doesn't allow it. So yeah, I just found this super lackluster. It's not even comparable to the Abrams films, obviously. And I don't believe it's comparable to the Paramount Plus TV series, which have a lot more polish and consistency from everything I understand. So yeah, I guess they just really wanted to get this out, which I commend that they at least released it. They didn't do a tax write-off bullshit like Warner Brothers Discovery. I give them that. Now there was some cool visuals, I guess, like seeing a tractor beam used in motion the way it was. When you think about science fiction, when you think of Star Wars tractor beams, it's always stationary ship coming into the bigger ship. It's a cooler application of that sci-fi technology. I guess that was cool. The shields reminded me of the Dune shields. I'm curious because I haven't seen the show if we've been watching those kind of like phase shields, the phase tech. Wonder if we've seen that already. I'm sure we have, but like as a newcomer, I was like, oh, that reminds me of Dune. That's kind of cool. There's this big high profile cameo at the end that doesn't really do much for me as someone without any connection to the overall story. But yeah, I would not expect any continuation of this. Maybe some of these characters pop back up in a show that's easy enough to pull off. But yeah, at the end of the day, I'm rooting for Star Trek to get it right on the big screen, and I'm happy that this film was not pushed out and marketed for the big screen because, I mean, Star Trek Beyond has a bit of a soft box office. Star Trek in general, it's like a successful franchise, but it's not a billion-dollar franchise on the big screen, right? And this film would just had so many negative headlines because the reception would have been poor, the performance would have been poor. I'm happy that didn't happen at least. Let me know, what do you think of Star Trek Section 31? I'd love to know what you think if you're a Discovery viewer, if you watch the shows on Paramount, because you probably have a lot more connection and perhaps disappointment than me as a newcomer. I'd love to hear that perspective. Let me know. And for more movie reviews, subscribe. And I'll see you next time.